So very excited to talk to you today, Charles, about a topic that fascinates me, blockchain in Asia, especially in Hong Kong. Welcome to Real Vision.
Good evening from Hong Kong, Ash. I'm a great fan of the show, early listeners from the show, and I'm one of these listeners which is sweating listening to your podcast, not only because the content is great and there is a lot of things to digest, but also because I'm listening to the podcast while riding my bike or running in the mountain of Hong Kong. So I'm curious to know where are people listening to this quality podcast, and I'm super excited to be here as well tonight.
Oh, that's fantastic. We love hearing that. I should say, this is a space you deeply understand. Before taking your current role at ConsenSys as Asia Managing Director, where you ran ConsenSys's central bank digital currencies project, working with the Hong Kong Monetary Authority and the Bank of Thailand, you were head of FinTech for the government of Hong Kong.
Absolutely. That's one of these places here in Hong Kong where the opportunities come to you, and when you're curious enough and ambitious enough, it's really a great place. So indeed, before joining the Hong Kong government, I was an entrepreneur here in Hong Kong. I started my company. I sold the company. We went IPO with a company which acquired me at the time, and then I got the opportunity to join the Hong Kong government to start the FinTech practice and work together with the regulators and different stakeholders from the ecosystem to shape the strategy of FinTech for Hong Kong back in 2016, and also being really hands-on together with my team to attract and craft the narrative and the services and the licenses and everything you need for a successful ecosystem around blockchain and around FinTech in general. And in this context, I got to meet many entrepreneurs from the blockchain industry, and eventually, after leaving the Hong Kong government, I embarked into this big project of writing a book and documenting the ecosystem of Hong Kong. And the book is out now. It's called Blockchain, and it's kind of documenting the personal journeys of these entrepreneurs, because behind every business there is people, there is entrepreneurs, there is decision being made one day, and sometimes bumpy roads. And I wanted to document 21 entrepreneurs of Hong Kong championing the blockchain ecosystem here.
Yeah. I mean, Charles, that's just an extraordinary position to get to view Hong Kong and FinTech through. What was your experience there like, and what's your view of the current state of play in Hong Kong?
So Hong Kong is an international financial center for many, many years. I just want maybe to point some numbers for everyone to get data points and understand what's happening in this part of the world. So Hong Kong is one of the largest IPO center in the world. I think we ranked first globally for the first quarter this year again, about 200 IPOs per year. So that's almost one IPO per day. Even though we are a 7 million people city, we've got 170 licensed bank, 600 stockbrokers. So it's just to give you a picture of how dense is the financial ecosystem here, and how many players there is here, how much competition. And as you know, competition brings innovation, brings quality businesses. So Hong Kong has been growing very, very strongly over the years, and it has this very liberal type of approach for years also. So it's really much a laissez-faire type of venue. And that's where the banks, the innovators, the FinTech, and some of them in blockchain are really growing super strong.
Yeah. You know, it's so interesting for those of us in the West. I think that many of us are sort of confused by what's happening in Hong Kong. It's something, there's a bit of opacity, I guess I should say, in just the understanding of a lot of people who view Hong Kong from the West and broader China as well. First, give us, for people who may not be familiar with Hong Kong as an SAR, a special administrative region, give us a sense of what that means.
So Hong Kong became a special administrative region in 97. So what it means, it's part of Greater China. It's part of China, but it's a special region of China. So it has its own government, its own regulation, its own tax systems. It's a very liberal economy. So there is a lot of laissez-faire here. The regulators wants to let the economy being driven by the industry. So we have a totally different set of regulations from China. We have our own currency here, the Hong Kong dollar, which is pegged to the US dollar. and a very rich ecosystem. And being a small city, so there is not really a domestic market per se. It's some kind of super connector. So everyone in Hong Kong is dealing with China, is dealing with customers and partners in the region here in Asia, but also in the US and back in Europe. That just creates a very fascinating environment where all the global banks are here, all the global players in finance and capital markets are here also, and benefiting from the flow of wealth and the flow of activity from the mainland. So essentially, Hong Kong is a proxy to mainland, and it benefits from this the tremendous growth mainland China got, but with a special flavor of being a special administrative region.
Yeah. I'm also curious about what's been happening recently. Obviously, many people know that China has begun to restrict some access in terms of the things that can be done with Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. Some would go so far as to call it a crackdown. What's your view? What's the potential impact? And what's your outlook for the future based on that news flow?
That's an important question. It's very important to capture that what's happening in China with Bitcoin is essentially not happening here in Hong Kong for the moment. The government of Hong Kong is really progressive, is embracing blockchain as a technology for the government administration in general, but also in terms of digital assets. We have here in Hong Kong the SFC, the equivalent of the SEC in the US, which has started to issue licenses to regulated entities here to deal with digital assets and to start to grow this market. So some of the aspects of the crypto industry which would not be possible in China are definitely possible in Hong Kong. And I was walking in the street earlier today, and I could see some advertising about Bitcoin exchanges which were able to publicize their services here in Hong Kong. So the crackdown you will see in China is not happening here in Hong Kong, and we have this degree of freedom for the industry, which is really helping to grow. And what is important also to capture is a big part of the global crypto elite is actually based in Hong Kong. I was looking at the volume of crypto exchange today. As you know, it's a very lively market. And if you look at the top 10 exchanges today, 8 out of 10 are actually based or originally from Asia. And that's something to really emphasize. We tend to have in the West news coverage which are focusing on the Western companies, but a lot of big players and a lot of OGs are actually based here. So if you think of the likes of BitMEX, of FTX, OKX, Huobi, and many others, they operate in some way here in Hong Kong. And we even have more than 3 companies which are crypto-related companies, crypto exchanges listed here. So what you will feel and hear about China does not apply necessarily to Hong Kong, and this creates this makes it a very, very special place.
Yes, indeed. It really is an unusual circumstance there. And I think it's difficult and for people in the West to understand it. And it's so helpful to have you, who's on the ground there, give us this guided tour. So now that we've set up a little bit about what the state of play is, tell us a little bit about your work at ConsenSys. I've interviewed your ConsenSys colleague, Joe Lubin, a number of times here at Real Vision. Give us a sense of what your remit is, what you're doing with ConsenSys.
So I'm head of Asia for ConsenSys. So I lead all the customer facing activities here. ConsenSys in Asia has offices in Hong Kong, Singapore, Australia, and Japan, and we are involved essentially in building infrastructure and enterprise services. So we work with central banks. We are building CBDC initiatives with the central banks of Australia. We are also building retail CBDCs together with the Bank of Thailand. And we are well known as well in Hong Kong for building the CBDC bridge, the multiple CBDC bridge, which brings together HKMA, Bank of Thailand, CBUAE from Dubai, as well as PBOC China. And it's the first time in the world we see 4 central banks, working together on a shared infrastructure, which is blockchain-based, built on Ethereum, for their CBDC, and really looking at the next step on beyond the national and domestic CBDC applications, but looking at really global CBDC expansion and making sure that they build the right infrastructure. So we help central banks, we help commercial banks with some of their stablecoin initiatives. We've been very much involved in a large project around carbon credit tokenization, linking banks from Asia with banks from South America, and building a new infrastructure for this new kind of assets. But we are also very much engaged with the retail users here in Asia. You might be familiar with MetaMask, which is one of the most popular crypto wallets. We reach this month 8 million users on MetaMask. And what you will certainly note is that 46% of these users are actually coming from Asia. So it's very important for ConsenSys to keep building infrastructure. We are really software engineers building protocol, building enterprise grade platforms, but also thinking of the retail side of the market and helping all these new users and newcomers to the ecosystem to be onboarded in the right way with the right tooling.
Hey, if you like this clip, be sure to check out the full interview and more only on realvision.com/crypto. It's 100% free. Sign up now.